Hello, welcome back to my channel. You might have seen my last video where I gave my first reaction to Andrew Yang's debate. I really talked about him first because he really had an effect on the overall conversation, and I was really excited to see UBI discussed on the stage. But right now I want to get into grades for every single candidate, starting at the bottom. And this guy, Mr. Beto, he got into the race because he was in Texas and he had what? 5 times the fundraising money as Ted Cruz, and he barely lost in Texas, which the Democrats really wanted, obviously, to flip that state. So after this, everyone told him he's a superstar. Oh, you're going to win at the presidency. Run for the presidency, Beto. You're going to do so great. But now he's here. He's been lifeless throughout every single debate. He had such a terrible moment in this debate. The only thing that stood out is the moment where he got really pressured by Buttigieg on his mandatory assault rifle buyback or whatever. And the question was, how are you going to enforce a mandatory buyback? And Beto had absolutely zero answers for it. He just kept on going back into his talking point, and I felt so bad for the guy. It was reminiscent of that moment in the Republican primary debate 2016 when Rubio repeated himself 4 times in a row. If you don't remember that, please Google it and watch it. It's hilarious, but it seems so robotic. He had no answer for it. How would they enforce a mandatory gun buyback? What, are they going to have them go into these communities where there's already police officers invading homes that aren't theirs and shooting people that are just peacefully carrying out their lives inside their own homes? What, they're going to go down to these inner cities, these dangerous inner cities, but they are, you know, places of high crime, but are they going to go into these areas, high stress, low economic status, and these people have these rifles to protect themselves? Are they just going to go into these people's houses? And then he said no. So therefore, how are we going to have a mandatory buyback? It's not possible. Get out of here, Beto. Leave. There's 12 candidates on the stage. You need to leave. Tom Steyer, I understand you wanted to have your little fantasy of being a presidential candidate for the Democrats, but why did you get your nasty Christmas tie and come on stage last night? That tie, it grossed me out. I was like, what is he doing? And it wasn't even straight. The tie was to the side. Like, at least have someone dress you. And the way he stared at the camera, like, his answers for the questions were alright. They were generic Democratic, like, talking points. But he stared at the camera. He was staring into our soul as he was presenting the ideas like this. And it made me feel really uncomfortable because he was showing no emotion and just reiterating what he sees on CNN every day. Please. You're adding nothing new to the conversation. I understand you are able to fully fund yourself because you're a billionaire, but please go back to the sidelines and just throw your money behind whatever candidate you think is the best one. And I love Tulsi, but right now, at this point in the cycle, I mean, I've really enjoyed her presence on stage, but when your level of expertise is in foreign policy, that's really hard to get across to the general public in a debate setting, especially in our setting right now where it's 45-second clips. Basically, you're just rambling back and forth, trying to hit a zinger, trying to get a good talking point. Americans have a hard time understanding the complex domestic issues we're having, let alone foreign policy. So when she's up there on stage and she's trying to pinpoint Elizabeth Warren and attack her credibility to be commander-in-chief, that's never going to land on a debate stage like this. I hope that Tulsi just doesn't come back to the next debate. I know she was talking about boycotting this one. Her, Steyer, and Beto, they should definitely not be back because all they're doing is draining time away from other candidates, like in that 4th through 6th spot that should be getting more speaking time. Like, having 12 candidates on the stage is insane. Hopefully the regulations start to get harder. I think 8 qualified for November so far. Andrew Yang was the latest to qualify, but right there, those top 8 candidates, I think those should be the only ones on the debate stage. So, moving on to Walmart brand Hillary Clinton, who just doesn't have $500 million behind her, and also does not have a husband that is one of the most popular presidents of all time, Amy Klobuchar. Hey, everything into consideration, I think she did good. I mean, she definitely won in some regard with, 14 minutes of speaking time over Bernie Sanders, which is insane, over Andrew Yang, which is insane, over Harris, over Buttigieg, I think. Like, how did she get to talk so much? Like, she did her thing, I guess. She was overwhelmingly, I want to say boring. She came out with a couple lines that she looked really proud of. She had a weird moment on camera where it panned to her and she was just kind of like staring into nowhere. That kind of was a bad look. she's another one. I'm not sure what she's bringing to the debate stage. I know a lot of people think she had a good showing. And Bill Maher said that she is a good candidate to win. I'm not sure where the appeal is in the general election, but right now there definitely is not appeal because she's polling at an average on real clear politics of like 0.6%. So Amy Klobuchar, please leave. Kamala Harris, her only policy position is Donald Trump's a really bad boy. So like her one defining moment in this whole debate was her saying Donald Trump should get banned from Twitter. That's such a good way to win the election. Yeah, ban Donald Trump from Twitter. Because, you know, on the internet, there's no other way for Donald Trump to connect to his base. You're polling too high and you have too much money, so I can't say please leave. But please stop being, like, insufferable. Please just, like, add to the conversation, maybe debate something. Don't just debate Donald Trump. You're in the Democratic primary. I know everyone's doing that to an extent, but you're the worst one. I think I can name one point in every single debate when the other candidates were talking about something that doesn't have to do with Donald Trump. And you had to stop the policy discussion and say, guys, we're forgetting something. Let's talk about Donald Trump. So Cory Booker and Julián Castro had pretty decent nights. They just kind of stood there and they were pretty chill, you know, I could hang out with them. Cory Booker had the sweet moment about kindness and treating people with respect and having good conversations. Castro just presented his ideas. Both of them in the past were attack dogs, and I don't think they did that as much in this debate. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're ready to concede and just drop out. Please leave. We need less people. Pete Buttigieg came out swinging, going at the progressives on health care. Both progressives said to him that under their plans, that middle-class families will be paying less in total, but as he pressed them more, only Bernie Sanders would admit that middle-class taxes would go up. Warren kept deflecting and would not say that exactly, and Buttigieg called her out on that, and I thought that was actually good. I don't like Buttigieg, but I will note that he did good in that regard. Warren has no health care plan yet. People think she's for Medicare for all. That's for another time, though. She has no health care plan. But anyway, Buttigieg did really well in the moment with Beto. He got a line out that really stuck when he said, I don't need a lesson on courage from you. When Beto was saying that we can't get these things done without a politician who has courage when talking about his gun legislation. Although, you know, Beto had no idea what he was doing anyway. But whatever. But Buttigieg did good there. He's playing to that really boring, moderate side of the party. He's hoping to take votes away from Biden, take votes away from Klobuchar. Wait a second, there are no votes to get from her. But he's trying to be that force against the progressives because everybody knows Biden is coming crashing down. The only reason Biden is not gone yet is because of his name recognition, and there's not that many people paying attention right now. If it was later in the cycle and Biden was making these mistakes, I think he'd be crashing. But right now, he's slowly trickling down, but I think it's going to go faster. That moves right on to him. The only success he really had in this debate was the one attack he had on Warren, and also the fact that he only got to speak for 16 minutes. He wasn't being attacked the whole debate like he formerly was. He had the second most speaking time beneath Warren, who had 24 minutes. And he actually went at Warren. When he talked about the one bill that he fought for, he's like, well, I fought for your bill to get passed. How are you going to say that you should get the credit for it when I actually helped you get it through? So you shouldn't be saying that I'm against it and I am the best. Go Joe, go Barack. But all in all, Joe Biden came out. I saw somebody say that he won the debate, which I don't understand at all. The only thing he won was the contest of not having to talk, because whenever he talks, his chances to win go down. Elizabeth Warren, I know the corporate media really wants to support her and say that she won the debate, but nobody actually thinks that she won the debate. Like, if you ask an average American voter in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, the states that Democrats really need to win that they didn't win in 2016, they're not looking for an Elizabeth Warren. She wasn't comfortable with her position in the frontrunner spot. When asked about health care, she was really back and forth because she has no health care plan. She's not for Medicare for all. She says that. That's her way to get into the progressive base. She's totally, blatantly misrepresenting who she is on healthcare. She does not have a plan, and she's posing it as this progressive. when it's concerning money in politics. She said that no money can reach a politician because then it corrupts them. But it came out that she is accepting big money in the general election. But she's not accepting it for her campaign. She's only doing big fundraisers for the DNC. So, what is she? A corporate progressive? That's my new thing that I'm calling her. The corporate progressive. This thing that shouldn't make sense. This oxymoron. I mean, she didn't do terrible. She spoke for 23 minutes. And I don't know. Her whole, brand is basically being a less crazy Bernie, and her policies every single week are trying to get closer to Bernie. So why are all these voters voting for her instead of Bernie? Is it because they feel safer? Is it because she's a woman? I want to know why. I know that people said it's sexist if you support Bernie over her, but isn't it more realistic? And if you have a sense for a genuine politician, wouldn't you want who came first, who you know will relentlessly fight for this, who you know is not courting the DNC at all? Elizabeth Warren is courting the DNC very heavily, but I did rank her this high because she is the front runner now, and she got a lot of talking time. She didn't do absolutely terrible. I don't think it's going to make a lot of movement, but the base is starting to look a little flimsy. And then we have two guys come up that did very well. At the top of this list are Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang, who everybody knows are by far my two favorite candidates, so that's a little, you might say it's biased, but when you look at what the debate spoke about, look at the very first question. They asked every single candidate what they thought about the impeachment of Donald Trump. The worst, most boring, grueling process in the world, asking each individual candidate to reiterate the exact same thing, until they finally got to Andrew Yang. And he said, yes, we should impeach the president, we should look into this further, but we cannot, one, assume that the impeachment will even work, and number two, we can't pretend that an impeachment will erase the problems that got Donald Trump elected. Him and Bernie gave this message. Bernie at one point said that although we could keep yelling at Trump, we cannot forget the eternal struggle of everyday Americans. These two candidates were the only two to reach into that bag, to say, stop just yelling Donald Trump bad, we have to focus on speaking straight to the people. Andrew Yang, he got into his wheelhouse. I was so surprised when they actually brought up jobs and automation and questioned Andrew Yang on the UBI in a completely professional way. It's a far cry from the first MSNBC debate where they basically asked them as a joke to explain a VAT tax and the UBI completely in 45 seconds. So now they actually had a conversation on the whole debate stage right after this terrible impeachment question. And it was so crazy because isn't it funny that the part of the debate that appealed to American voters the most was the one part centered around Andrew Yang's policies, his focus on automation in the workplace? It's almost like if the Democrats want to win, how about they talk about the working people in our country? Yang went after Elizabeth Warren at one point, which I was surprised about. He butt in and said to her, basically, if you are ignoring the problem of automation, you're just ignoring the struggle these Americans are going through. What's the fourth industrial revolution? And he had a pretty long-winded thing, and it was really good energy. He actually seemed to be getting fired up a little bit. He had to get Warren on the defensive because a lot of people know a couple weeks ago she actually said that the story of automation, or the fact that automation is taking American jobs, is a cool story, bro, but it's not true. So Elizabeth Warren was totally denying that automation's a thing, which makes absolutely no sense. So Andrew Yang actually made her deflect, take a step back, and say, well, I have to crunch the numbers a little bit more. I want to see the data you're studying, and then we'll actually talk about this for the future. And I was happy to see that. Then, I think the overwhelming winner of the whole thing, coming back from his heart attack, was Bernie, because he came back and he was so energetic and he was so clear with the way he stated what he was trying to say. This is the best representation of what Bernie is trying to do I've seen so far in the campaign cycle. I know people say, doctors say on like CNN, I saw MSNBC, although the host didn't like to hear it, the doctor said that after you get stents in, like Bernie did during the whole heart fiasco, that you may actually feel better than you ever did before. And he came out with a voice. He had one point where he dug into Joe Biden when Joe Biden tried to be like a pragmatic leader, and he said, you know what, Joe, you say you get things done, but what you did get done is like a bankruptcy bill, getting us into a war, and a bunch of other things. Basically, who cares if you're getting stuff done if the stuff you're getting done is bad? So I think he dug in very well there. So Bernie and Yang, I definitely would put at the very top of this, and not just because I'm biased, because I'm definitely am a little bit. But when you're looking at what the Democrats need to do to win, what they failed on in 2016, these two candidates are the only ones hitting that message.